Hi guys, I'm Clarke. Welcome back to another video. This time we're talking about this overdrive here, the Marshall Bluesbreaker. This specific model is from 1991. It is a Mark I, which needs to say now have a bit of a silly price tag attached to them for one very specific reason, but we'll get onto that. So this is debatably one of the first Marshall in-a-box pedals. It's designed to emulate the sound of the infamous Marshall Bluesbreaker, which is a very similar amp to the Marshall JTM 45. I won't go into the whole backstory, but essentially it was designed to sound like that amp. It's actually got a very clean sound, and I'm not sure how well it actually emulates that amp, but a certain John Mayer used it on his Continuum album. So the sound of big songs such as Slow Dancing in a Burning Room and Gravity were recorded through this pedal. As soon as that became public knowledge, the price of them went through the roof. Not quite as stupid as Clones, but they still do fetch many hundreds of pounds. Probably not this one. This one's been repaired by a good friend of mine because it wasn't in the best state, and if you see it up close, it isn't in the best condition, so this probably isn't actually worth that much, but it still sounds great, and it's actually the sound on the Brave Rival track, Long Time Coming. I use that pedal in the studio for that song. But why are we talking about it? Well, there are so many emulations of this pedal. There are three big pedal groups I find that get emulated a lot: the Tube Screamer, the Clone, and the Bluesbreaker. And there are so many copies of this, and most people say they've improved it. I have one such copy. This has been taken off my pedal board, hence the little label there showing me where I have all my settings. This is a Tone City Bluesman. Forgot it for a minute there. Tone City Bluesman, and I was honestly blown away when I played this pedal. It's, I think, $39.99 in England right now. Crazy cheap. But it sounds incredible. The guy behind Tone City, whose name I have forgotten, is a bit of a genius when it comes to creating budget versions of expensive pedals, particularly overdrives, and this is one such example. So I thought what we'd do today is put these two pedals next to each other and kind of see what differences there are, if any, and can I actually make this sound as good as the legendary pedal itself. So before we get into this, I'm going to give you two examples of playing something nice and short and simple, and one is going to be the real Bluesbreaker and one is going to be the Bluesman. I want you to let me know in the comments below which one you think is which, and later on in the video I will let you know the answer. So here is example A, and here's example B. Let me know in the comments below which one was the Bluesbreaker and which one was the Bluesman. Okay, as per usual, I have my Fender FSR Pro American Strat. Those were in the right order. If you don't know about this guitar, click the link here or somewhere in the description below to go see my deep dive video on it. It's been quite heavily modified, which is why I say that. I'm plugged into my Victory V40 Deluxe combo, which sounds like this. So, before we dive into this, I want to point out a few things about the Bluesbreaker pedal, which, if you're familiar with them, you'll already know, but if you've not played one, you may not. They famously don't do a lot with everything at 12 o'clock. You have to get it cranked quite high before it really starts to do a lot, which you'll see in a moment. But they're also very interactive, and by that I mean by changing one control you affect the others. So by turning it up you might make it brighter, or you might make it more or less gainy, which might sound like a complete nightmare, but it does actually have its advantages. Obviously, if you have a sound in your head and you're just trying to dial it in, that's no good whatsoever. However, if you don't know what sound you want, or you think you do, but you may actually be open to some other ideas, messing around with this pedal can get you some things you weren't expecting, and that can actually lead you to some pretty cool places. But it's definitely not one where you just, oh, I'll add a little bit more volume. Nah, the sound's changed. The third and final thing I want to say about it is that volume at noon is not unity gain. You actually need to crank the volume in order to make it sound at the same volume. There have been so many versions of this made by various manufacturers. Some really famous pedals like the Morning Glory by JHS and the King of Tone by Analog Man are other iterations of this same pedal, but they all have their own take on it. They modify it to try and get rid of some of these problems. Some of them are more consistent. Some of them, the volume, you don't have that same volume drop problem. So we're going to see how the Bluesman by Tone City stacks up. We're going to start at 12 o'clock. As I said, it doesn't tend to do a lot at this point, but we'll just start there and then see how it is on the other pedal. I suspect they won't sound exactly the same, but we'll be able to get a similar sound. So let's just make sure everything's at 12. And once again, here's the clean sound. And here's the Bluesbreaker. So, so straight away, it is much quieter. So just for academic sake, let's see what the Bluesman sounds like with the same settings. So, a bit louder, but still quite muddy. So we'll go with that pedal show logic of everything at 2 o'clock and every pedal sounds great and see where we are from there. So here's the Bluesbreaker. Are we now at unity? Even then, it's still quieter. But once again, let's compare it to the Bluesman. So I'd say the Bluesman's actually at unity gain now. Yeah, that's now at unity gain, but the Bluesbreaker isn't. So there are differences between this pedal, but I think the designer of the Bluesman would argue that he's done this to actually make it more usable, and I do agree. The volume is a little bit more usable on this one. Let's see what happens when we turn the the volume on the Bluesbreaker up to 3 o'clock. Are we at unity now? Hey, there we are. That is where unity gain is, so you can see the problem. You haven't got a lot of scope if you wanted to boost. There isn't much room to boost in it. However, it's a lovely sound, and that's the main thing. So now we've covered that, let's have a look at how well the Bluesman actually emulates it. So I'm going to get a nice sound at the Bluesbreaker, and we'll see what we can get. I think a little bit less tone. I like that. So let's see if we can get similar with the Bluesman. Now I won't touch the volume because we've got that to unity gain, but let's see if we match the tone where we are. So the gain, something like that, tone back a little bit. Let's see where this gets us. Sounds great. Does it sound the same? Let's find out. Little bit, the Bluesbreaker itself is a little bit darker, so let's dial the tone back a little bit. Let's try that. Still too bright. Let's dial it back a little bit more. I'd say that's pretty close. A little bit too much gain, I'd say. Maybe a little bit too dark now. Yeah, a little bit more. Yeah, I think we're pretty much there. There's some slight differences in there, but you're pretty close. I think in a mix you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference there. But something I want to highlight more here is that you don't necessarily, when you've got a Bluesbreaker style pedal like this, you don't necessarily want it to sound exactly the same. The idea of this, as I said, he's made the volume pot a lot more usable than the original Bluesbreaker. And if you adjust each thing, it doesn't have a massive effect on other controls like the original Bluesbreaker. So it is supposed to be different. So the question isn't really, do they sound the same? I think the question really is, does it sound good? And I would say, yeah, it really does. I'm finding, I don't know how well this is going to come across, I've obviously mic'd up the amp, but I don't know how well it's going to come across on YouTube. Each time I play the Bluesbreaker, even without changing the settings, it does actually feel a bit different. Like I just turned the tone up on the Bluesman to try and match the Bluesbreaker. I'm now finding the Bluesbreaker sounds darker. So this is where I think the issue is with the Bluesbreaker, is that it's not consistent. It does seem to change. I don't know if it's a temperature thing. I know a lot of germanium components are affected by that. I don't know whether the Bluesbreaker has anything like that going on. But I love it, even though it's inconsistent. It's weird. Usually if there was a pedal this inconsistent, I go, ugh, can't be dealing with that. It's just too much of a faff. But it has a character to it that I really like. So even though it's a little bit difficult to work with, it's still a really nice pedal. But the Bluesman is a much more clinical approach without a clinical sound. So it sounds lovely, but it has a very clear cut. This control does this control does this, which the Bluesbreaker doesn't. Now let's just see how much gain each one has, just as a matter of curiosity. So I'm not going to mess with the volume or the tone, I'm just going to crank both gains. So here's the Bluesbreaker. Oh, I like that. I don't think I've actually ever cranked this one. I've always used it for more of a clean low gain pedal. Let's try the Bluesman. Just on that quick little noodle on each, I would probably prefer the Bluesbreaker slightly, but it's not that the Bluesman sounds bad at all. It's just I've got them side by side. I'd be happy with either of those overdrive tones, and you have to let me know what you think between the two. Now I teased you earlier on by saying here's two blind examples. One's one pedal, one's the other. Can you tell which one it is? And I will now confirm that, drumroll please, the first pedal, pedal A, was the Bluesbreaker itself, and pedal B was the Bluesman. So let me know in the comments, did you get it right? Did you get it wrong? Did you honestly not care because they both sounded great? Did you honestly not care because they both sounded terrible? Let me know. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button below and subscribe if you're not already. Let me know in the comments if you have any thoughts or feelings on this video. Have yourself a great day, and I'll see you next time.